How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I absolutely loved I Can Only Imagine too, so I'm really excited to chat with you.
Thanks.
Um, did you expect that you were getting a sequel, and what was your reaction to finding out?
No, yeah, no. We kind of joked about it, always something, Bart's a silly person. So always something silly, space or animated or zombie apocalypse. And so we just had such an amazing time. The first film did so well that we've all stayed in touch the past 10 years. And it was Bart, I think, who texted me. He's like, "Hey man, can you keep a secret?" I was like, "No, don't tell me a secret. I'm not keeping it." And he was like, "No, seriously, I want." I was like, "Okay, fine." And he's like, "I think we have a pitch meeting with Lionsgate, and I think we're gonna." And so he's the one that first told me about it, and I was elated. I think I told Andy Irwin, I was like, "You tell me where, tell me when, I'll be there. Like, let's make it happen." That was before we had a script, before we had a story, before we had anything. I mean, I think they had an idea of the story, but they're not going to tell me. And so after the initial reaction, then like the panic sets in. Then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing a sequel, and I hope that we can put something together that's worthwhile. And no one wants to do a boring sequel. And so the big moment for me was when I first read the first draft of the script they sent me, and I was just blown away. Like I couldn't believe there was more true story. I couldn't believe how much more we were diving into. I couldn't believe how heavy and how real and how vulnerable the story was, and that was like everything that I was hoping to do. And so it was kind of lined up perfectly with me. And you know, suddenly I'm hungry now, and it's like, let's go do this. Let's go tear this up. And they gave me a buffet to work with. We did like three different time frames, Bart at three different ages, a lot of ground to cover, a lot of stuff going on, and so it was a blast. We had so much fun.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah,
Um, and there was a little bit of time in between filming the first one and filming the sequel. So what was it like for you to get back into the rhythm and jump into Bart's shoes again?
yeah. I it was almost 10 years since we started filming the first one before the second one came out. So I've
Wow.
just been rounding up. We're calling it 10 years, and for me, it may as well have been 30 years. I was I was like 26, 27 when we filmed the first one. Wasn't married, wasn't a parent, like didn't have a lot of life on my bones. Had gone to theater, had been on Broadway, like and got to do that. That was awesome. But this time around, man, I remember calling the directors and kind of trying to warn them. I was like, guys, I'm not in a great place right now. Like I'm a husband, I'm a father. My mom died, before COVID. Like just a lot of life experience that happened to me since the first one. And I was in a pretty raw, vulnerable place, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And I kind of said, I don't know if this is a good idea. You know what I mean? Like, I think you need to give me 6 months to, get in a little better shape, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and like, let me get my life together and let me get prepared for this. Or we could just like fly out in 2 weeks and see what we come up with. And they were much more in favor of the latter proposition. And they're like, hey, man, we love you. We respect you. If you're going through some stuff, like let's work through it on the film set. And they weren't trying to take advantage of me or anything. Like I had the ultimate decision whether I wanted this to happen or not. But I think we all trusted each other. They gave me a long leash, and I trusted them to kind of give me room. But I said, hey, it might be a little raw. It might be a little volatile. It might be a little this and that, like you're getting me in a very raw place. But I think that was kind of exactly what we needed. So I'm not a method actor or anything like that. Like it wasn't an intentional, me trying to put myself in a bad place. It was just life experience. And so once we finally got on set and I realized that I had kind of the full trust of the entire team, it was like, oh, well, then let's do something special here. Let's tell a story. Let's be raw. Let's be vulnerable. Let's be real. Let's be truthful. And Milo was on board with that, and Sophie was on board with that. And I mean, that's just Trace in general. Trace can't help it. So we were proud of what we put together. We were proud of kind of the heaviness that we covered. We talked a lot about mental health. I don't think we ever said the word depression, but I think it's pretty clear that Bart was depressed, and so I think it's just time to start talking about that stuff. You know, I grew up as a preacher's kid, and people don't really like talking about that stuff, and I get it, trust me. But what else are we gonna do? We got to start talking about it, you know. And I'm thankful for Bart, who was brave enough to kind of tell these stories. And what I liked about the first one is Bart is not perfect. You know, it's not like, oh, boo-hoo, woe is me, some sweet little boy lost his daddy. You know, no, Bart's kind of, you know, he, I don't want to call him a jerk. He's definitely not a jerk. But because of Bart's trauma and because of Bart's life experiences, he doesn't always react and treat people the way that he probably wishes he would. And then moving into the sequel, I kind of get to be the bad guy. I kind of get to be the antagonist, you know. And Tim Timmons is the light in the darkness of our story. Milo comes in and just absolutely smashes it, and I kind of preferred it that way. You know, like let me be the bad guy. I'm okay if some audience members are kind of like questioning Bart and questioning his motives. That's kind of right where we want them. And so it was fun. It was a buffet, and we kind of devoured it and told a lot of story in 2 hours.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
And I agree 100% that mental health needs to be talked about more.
for sure.
And because the film was so heavy and you were also going through some heavy things yourself, was this cathartic for you? How did you feel after doing all of this?
Every day was a workout for me, and I knew that it would be. That's how it should be. You know, as an actor, once you kind of, you know, the first film was my first time on a film set, so I didn't have any experience. And you know, now I've got 5 or 6 films under my belt in the last 10 years, and it's like, okay, I understand what my assignment is a little better. And so that was great because I kind of understood what was expected of me on a daily basis, and um, extremely cathartic for me to work through some of the stuff and to have, I call them my big brothers, to kind of allow me to, because at this point I'm not trying to mimic Bart anymore. If anything, I'm trying to mimic myself from 10 years ago, you know. And so I had even more freedom on the sequel to kind of make the character, you know, more. I think people that know me and know Bart can probably separate the two. But I'm hoping that strangers, you know, won't know the difference where Bart ends and John begins, and so on and so forth. But yeah, there was some big moments. You know, as an actor, you read a script and you kind of circle 2 or 3 moments or scenes. Milo and I talked about, you know, when we first met, just like this over Zoom, and he was like, "Hey man, April 17th, that's our scene." You know, like we go to bed dreaming about it. You know, like it's two athletes that are excited for the Super Bowl. And so it was great to work with somebody like Milo, who, like an athlete, was like gearing up for some of these big scenes. And then once we got there, we were so prepared for it. It was really a beautiful thing. The other thing I'd like to mention is probably like a horror film. It's probably not very scary to film a horror film. You know, like to be on set, you know, you see all the props and you see the fake blood and you see how all the tricks work. And we did cover a lot of heavy things in this film, which I'm very proud of. But I'm a very not serious person, and I can't like live with a cloud over my head all day long. So any chance I get, Andy Irwin calls me an emotional terrorist, whatever that means. Um, Once I get bored, watch out. You know what I mean? So yes, there's a lot of heavy stuff, and yes, I take that very seriously, and we got a lot of good work in. But you know, 90% of the time, we're having fun, we're goofing around, we're keeping the atmosphere light, and we just had a blast.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Um, Unfortunately, I'm running out of time. So thank you so much for chatting. I
Yeah,
learned a
thanks.
lot of behind the scenes stuff that I'm gonna go rewatch the film now and have that all in the back of my mind as I do so.
I'll
But
tell you all the
thank you so
secrets.
much for
Yeah.
chatting, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me, Beth. Thank you.